What event comes to mind when told the following words? Toronto, end of summer tradition, 18-day event, midway rides, wacky food, and fun. If you grew up in Canada, you will most likely think of the Canadian National Exhibition. Throughout this PowerPoint, you will learn more about the business of the CNE and how it becomes this memorable and unique experience. Although almost everyone in the GTA has at least heard of the CNE, most do not know its rich history. Let's go back a couple of years, 139 years to be exact. The CNE was founded in 1879 under the name Toronto Industrial Exhibition. The purpose of the exhibit was to foster the development of agriculture, industry, and the arts. People came from far to experience new technological innovation, to learn about commercial products, to enjoy popular entertainers of the time, to enjoy famous art, and to engage in community celebrations. In 1912, the name was changed from the Toronto Industrial Exhibition to the Canadian National Exhibition to better represent what the fair had become, a show window of the nation. By 1912, the exhibit grew to cover close to 350 acres and include amusement parks and the permanent exhibition facilities. In 1983, the CNE received its status as an agricultural society and was also a program of the exhibition place. From 1983 onwards, all surpluses and deficits were absorbed by the City of Toronto and the exhibition place. 30 years later, in 2013, the CNE took advantage of the opportunity to become organizationally independent. Becoming independent allowed the association to reinvest the revenues back into the event and invest in business initiatives. Today, the CNE is the largest community event and the 5th largest agricultural fair in all of North America. It is financially stable, a non-for-profit organization which does not rely on government subsidy and is trying to expand its service to plan for the future. Visitors from all around Ontario come to enjoy the live entertainment, shows, concerts, sports, competitions, food, midway rides, games, parades, shopping, the farm exhibits, the air show, and celebrity chef demonstrations. It can be said that the CNE has changed with the people of Toronto and is a true reflection of Canadian society. Every event has a purpose, otherwise why would it even exist? The purpose of the CNE has changed over its years of existence. Despite no longer being the place to discover technological innovations, it remains a place of fun and entertainment. Besides bringing people together, the purpose of the CNE is to be successful. So how is success measured? As with any business, its success relies solely on its visitors. Needless to say that without them, the business would not be able to survive. Therefore, it is crucial to measure success. But how does an event measure its success? The most obvious way the CNE measures its success is by numerics. So for example, how many people have visited the CNE ground in total over the 18 days period? However, as the CNE is mainly an outdoor event, numerics can be heavily influenced by the weather. If it rains for 18 days straight, then the visitor count would most likely be far less than the previous years. Therefore, numeric counts cannot be the sole tool to measure success. Financial measurements, vendor feedback, during and post-event employee engagement surveys, on-the-ground interviews, and field research are all ways the CNE measures success. The CNE also introduced a comfy couch conversation, which was an area designated for an on-the-ground interview. Staff incentivized visitors to participate in the comfy couch conversation to find out how they felt about this year's event by providing them with promo codes for discounted or giveaways. Social media, of course, is also closely followed and is used as a way to send out pre, during, and post online surveys to attendees. Have you ever heard of the saying, an organization is only as strong as its employees? Well, in the events world, this quote certainly holds true. An event, especially one as big as the CNE, could never exist without the people who spend endless time coordinating, creating, planning, and executing various parts of the event. So how many employees are needed to put together such an event, you may ask? Let's have a look at the organizational chart. The CNE employs 32 people full-time, as well as numerous contractors and consultants to make each year a unique and exciting experience for its visitors. The staff can be categorized into 5 main departments. The biggest department, in which 31 full-time and part-time employees work, is the Business Development and Innovation Department. But the small team quickly grows as soon as spring rolls around. In the spring before the CNE even begins, it employs around 1,200 employees to assist in the organization and execution of the event. During the event, it hires an additional 3,500 employees, which includes emergency services such as Toronto Police, Toronto Fire, food vendors, exhibitors, and concessionaires. As with most events, companies rely heavily on volunteers to help run a successful show. The CNE is grateful to welcome more than hundreds of volunteers each year throughout the event. Most volunteers are people who have visited the CNE for years and want to ensure it remains a place of fun, as well as high school students who have to complete their 40 volunteer hours. Although the volunteer plays a crucial role at the CNE, the organization must ensure that the positions do not replace jobs. As the CNE is a union site, the volunteers cannot, under any circumstances, replace any jobs. As the CNE is such a huge event, it affects many different people, organizations, and businesses. Not everyone is impacted the same way, which is why we will group our stakeholders into two different categories: primary and secondary. The CNE's primary stakeholders are visitor, employees, volunteers, sponsors, partners, and suppliers. The CNE's secondary stakeholders are the media, host government, city, businesses, and supporting essential services such as police, security, medical, etc. Each of the stakeholders plays a crucial role in the event. For the purpose of this presentation, the focus of the stakeholders is placed on the sponsors. Similar to the volunteers discussed in the previous slide, the CNE cannot exist without its sponsors. Throughout its many years of existence, the CNE has noticed a change in how companies want to sponsor and be part of the CNE. Back in the days, company usually sponsored a stage or another segment of the program by simply branding whatever they sponsored. Nowadays, however, companies are looking for ways to interact and engage with the audience. Take Pizza Nova, for example. They agreed to form a partnership with the CNE by sponsoring an activation that allowed children to make their own pizzas. Most often, the sponsors look for ways to collect more customer information, such as email addresses for future promotions, or to create a bigger social media following. Finding these sponsors can be very challenging. The CNE employs 2 full-time staff whose job is to attract, gain, and retain sponsors and partners. The 2 employees work very closely with a third-party agency that assists with the heavy workload. Out of all the sponsors that are present throughout the 18 days of the CNE, only a handful have multi-year contracts, which means the rest needs to be attracted each and every year. Despite the short duration of the event itself, the event production process is very intricate and takes place year-round. As soon as the CNE shuts its doors at the end of the summer, the team immediately begins planning and production for the upcoming year. During the fall season, selection of sponsors and planning marketing efforts commences. Heavy work in regards to programming also begins around the fall season as well, so by the time February and March roll around, they are almost completely done booking acts and performers for the upcoming season. The event team also works heavily with those involved in exhibitor sales and the different midway teams. During the spring and summer seasons, it's all about coordinating the different teams and making sure everyone is ready for the beginning of the season. It is during the summer where the CNE's main focus is marketing, which we'll talk about next. While planning and producing of the campaigning process takes place year-round, the actual execution of ads and promotions doesn't start before mid-July. Campaigning is held back until this late in the summer for one main reason. As the CNE is typically associated with the idea of the summer coming to an end, the CNE team believes that those that attend the exhibition do not want to be reminded early that the end of summer is approaching. With the help of a third-party buying company, the only time they heavily focus on marketing for the new season is during the fall, right after the season ends. It isn't until mid-July and August that they pick back up on marketing and put out their campaigns literally weeks before the exhibition and heavily promote themselves during the actual event itself. While traditional means of marketing in the form of radio and newspaper continue to be used to promote the event, the marketing team at the CNE, in collaboration with third-party consultants, come together to divert their focus on now taking their advanced knowledge of digital media trends and social media platforms and ensuring they are constantly updating these platforms during the promotional period. In 2016, in the short 18-day span of the event, the CNE accumulated just over $32 million in revenue. This includes how much money was raised from midway games, food, and other sources we'll talk about next.
More than 40% of sales were accumulated from what was earned at the Midway, which includes rides, the games, and casino, as well as the concession stands. According to their 2016 financial statements, they earned about $13.5 million from this alone. Actual ticket admissions earned less than this, raising about $11 million in 2016. Entry fees, which is comprised of what was earned from allowing different retailers and exhibitors to use the CNE as a grant to sell their products, took up 16% of sales, which is about $5 million. Parking and sponsorship were also big sources of revenue, earning about $2 million and $800,000 respectively. In terms of where the money goes, as you could see from our previous slide on the stakeholders, the CNE is a very people-intensive event. We can see this reflected in its top 5 expenses. The CNE's top 5 major expenses consist of staffing, rent, safety fees, operations, and marketing. As discussed earlier, before the fair even begins, about 1,200 employees are hired in the spring to help with the organization of the event, and another 3,500 employees are hired for the actual event itself. Staffing amounts to about 70% of their operating budget, thus being their biggest expense. Along with staffing, rent is an exponentially large expense for the CNE as well. Since the CNE teams are tenants on the exhibition grounds, they have to pay to rent out the 168 acres of land they take up. Safety fees are another big expense, as guest safety is one of their main priorities. Thus, a lot of money is spent on third-party safety engineering companies to ensure a comfortable visitor experience. Park operations and marketing remain big expenses for the CNE as well.
What makes the CNE so great? The answer to this depends on who you're asking, but based on reviews, comments, and interviews, most people agree that the Midway rides, the casino, the shopping opportunities, the wacky foods, and the programming are the highlights of their visit. So how does the CNE decide on the program? The CNE invests quite a lot of resource to analyze its audience. Field research allows the organization to find out what the motivators or drivers are of the visitors. From that, they can determine the different demographics along with their personas, which allows the organization to find out what programs resonates with each persona. In order to successfully determine the different personas and their characters, the CNE hires a research consultancy firm specialized in demographics. To encourage consumers to visit more than once throughout the 18-day period, the CNE switches up the different programs to ensure that there are a couple of new things to do every day. Whether it's a sports tournament, a band, or a show, there is always something new to see at the CNE, even if you were to visit every single day.
The CNE aims to ensure that all activities that are executed, whether that be during the production process, up until the end of the exhibition season, are both culturally and environmentally sustainable. Keeping in mind the diverse local community and the environment allows for a continued successful future for the CNE and any of their future endeavors. In terms of cultural sustainability, CNE welcomes international communities from all over Toronto to display their art and sell homemade products and food in one space. In the International Pavilion, 110,000 square feet is dedicated to showcasing information on tourism, cultural, and trade opportunities, and provides Indigenous cultures to put on shows for visitors. In respect to environmental sustainability, the CNE has earned the name of being one of the greenest fairs in North America. In 2017, they were successful in diverting about 85% of waste from landfill, which included hundreds of thousands of kilograms of organic waste, clean fill and soil and sand, and plastic. With visible signage scattered throughout the grounds, the CNE ensures that both staff and customers are engaged in ensuring they are being environmentally aware and removing of their waste in an appropriate manner by making recycling and compost units available on the grounds. North American Midway Entertainment, provider of the rides and attractions for the CNE, also participates in green initiatives and has installed LED lighting on the rides, which has helped reduce their energy usage immensely. The CNE sets expectations for itself in regards to being ethical to guarantee not only a successful but also a morally responsible season. In light of events in past years that concerned guest safety, the CNE has made safety in regards to their food and midway rides their #1 priority. As the CNE offers a wide range of wacky and unusual concessions, it is especially important that they are thoroughly analyzed before being readily available for consumption by park guests. In 2013, Toronto Public Health found out that about 150 people became ill after eating cronut burgers sold by the Cne vendor Epic Burgers and Waffles. A week following this, another 2 vendors were shut down for food infractions. In response to this, the CNE has hired NORAX, who is a third party that specializes in providing solutions to food safety and quality management for businesses, is now in charge of approving each food item prior to selling it on the grounds. The CNE has also rethought their safety policy in recent years and has now hired a third-party safety engineering company to inspect every structure and every ride before it gets built and erected onto the grounds. During the actual exhibition season, North American Midway Entertainment has been selected by the CNE to overlook safety to ensure guest comfort and well-being. Aside from food and ride safety, another concern has had at the CNE is overcrowding. As the CNE sees about 1.5 million visitors annually in the short span of 18 days, controlling crowds is done by ensuring the park offers different guest entrances so traffic isn't congested in one entrance. On Youth Day of 2016, the CNE was shut down 3 hours early as overcrowding triggered fights to commence on the grounds. During situations like this, the CNE deploys the Toronto Police and fire services that are hired all season long to mitigate and to disperse the large crowds. Typically, admission prices at the CNE range from $15 to $20. To optimize growth, especially during times that aren't as busy, the CNE offers specialized admission prices to attract different demographics. One example is a consistent promotion they have with Pizza Nova, in which admission is only $8 after 5 p.m. Pizza Nova has been a vendor and proud supporter of the CNE for over 30 years, and in past years has offered, for example, free admission to anyone 19 years of age and under on a specific day during the season. As well, retailers like Shoppers Drug Mart and Pizza Pizza will sell discounted general admission tickets on behalf of the CNE. Each year since 1921, the CNE has distributed more than 1.25 million free kids CNE passes through local public and Catholic elementary school end-of-year report cards. This tradition began when one of the CNE's first presidents, Robert Fleming, would invite local students to the park for free to celebrate Young Canada Day. To go along with their marketing efforts that are executed right before the beginning of the season, another way the CNE has racked up revenue last year was giving their attendees the option to purchase their tickets before the season even began. Doing this allowed the guests to save up to 34% off their admission price.
As previously mentioned, the CNE measures its success in several different ways with multiple different stakeholders. The next upcoming slide is focused on the visitor experience and demonstrates all the customer touchpoints. A touchpoint is any customer interaction with a brand or a company either pre, during, or post-visit. More and more companies have discovered the benefits of identifying customer touchpoints to ensure that the customer experience is up to the company standards from the first touchpoint onwards. Many event companies have introduced this concept to ensure they don't overlook anything that could negatively affect the perception of the visitors. Let's take the arrival experience as an example. Visitors have planned their visit at the CNE and have made their way onto the grounds. As they walk out of whatever transportation they came from, they see a long lineup on an incredibly hot day. How is that going to make them feel? Probably not that great. They may be very annoyed and may start going on social media to express their feelings. Bang! Right there, the CNE received a negative review online for hundreds, if not thousands of people to see. So, how could this issue have been mitigated? By potentially advertising to buy tickets online, by opening up more cashiers, by installing a tent to cover visitors from the sun, by opening up more entrances on different sides on the grounds, etc. The possibilities are endless. By mapping out all the different touchpoints of all the different important stakeholders, companies such as the CNE can proactively identify potential issues and opportunities.
When running an event, one should expect that there are things that are outside of your control that will have an effect on operations. As we said before, as the Toronto community experiences change and growth over the years, we see this change reflected in the CNE and its operations. For the upcoming 2018 season, the CNE expects external factors to have an immense impact on the operations of the park. Since the minimum wage increase at the beginning of the year, the CNE has already had $1 million hit. As well, in light of the Ontario Place team announcing its rebranding and transformation into a recreational year-round green community space, as their neighbor, the CNE could potentially have to respond as the year progresses and as the project continues to develop. Ontario Place's East Island will be home to Toronto's newest waterfront destination, in which cultural activities, festivals, and other events will take place. Will this bring in more traffic to the exhibition grounds during CNE season, or will they have to come up with initiatives to divert the attention back to the event? As the CNE nears its 140th year of operations, the CNE is becoming more conscious of risks and opportunities so as they are able to adapt to Toronto's future developments and successfully exist in this technologically disruptive era. These future developments aim to take place outside of its regular 18-day duration and outside of the actual fairgrounds. They are looking to become a space for different events, like Asian night markets and virtual reality gaming garages. Test piloting these projects will provide the CNE team with a foundation to how they can perhaps enhance current fair activities and incorporate these new, innovative projects to actual CNE operations.
If one thinks that the only ability to work on events is by becoming an event planner, they must think again. As this course and this PowerPoint demonstrates, the world of events is so much more than just organizing, executing, and evaluating an event. Who takes care of the financials? Who hires support staff? Who brings in sponsors and creates relationships with partners? Who comes up with a business plan? Who takes care of the marketing? The point here is that there are many opportunities for individuals with different diplomas or bachelor degrees to work in the events industry. An event planning background isn't necessarily required to help organize an incredible, unforgettable, and traditional event at the CNE. There's one thing all the jobs listed above have in common: they are competitive. So how does a recent graduate get a chance to be part of a company such as the CNE? According to John Pico, the Chief Officer of Business and Development, it's by getting engaged and volunteering. Not only does it provide students and recent graduates with confidence, but it is also a great passion skill indicator, which is something that will be discussed in our next slide. It's needless to say that millennials find themselves in an extremely tough job market. So what does it take to stand out from all of the other applicants for a potential employment opportunity at the CNE? According to John Pico, the three most important things they look for in a candidate are the hard skills of the hiring department, passion, right mindfulness, and creativity. When asked what the three skills are the hardest to find among millennials, the CNE Chief Officer responded, commitment, perseverance, and tenacity, and finally, willpower and the ability to say no. Thank you on behalf of the recording team for listening and watching.
If you want to learn more about the X, please visit www.thex.com.
Let's go to the X.